In my previous life, Katakin's beloved died because of me. Overwhelmed with grief, he feigned a marriage alliance with me, then resorted to every means possible to drive my family into bankruptcy. He tormented me until I fell into severe depression. And in despair, I jumped from a building. At the moment of my death, Cade Chin stood coldly before me, covering my eyes with his hand. Nova, if you ever meet Vera and me again in your next life, remember to stay away from us. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to 7 years ago, on the small school path I walked every day. In the distance, Katakin and Vera were walking toward me. Vera spotted me first and happily waved at me. Nova, we're over here. My dazed mind suddenly jolted with alarm like I had seen a ghost. I swiftly threw my backpack at the two of them with all my strength, then turned and ran. Nova Jiang, class is about to start. Where are you going? Ignoring my classmates' shouts. I moved alone against the current of students in their uniforms. The passing wind wrapped around the sunlight, piercing through my chest again and again.
Great.
It's great to be alive. The heavy shadows that once permeated my thoughts and body, tormenting me to the point of unbearable pain, have vanished. I am now 17-year-old Nova Jiang, healthy, lively, and radiant. The Jiang and Q families have been close friends for generations. Cade Chin is a year older than me and has always been especially doting on me since we were children. From a piece of candy in my childhood to a princess dress in my youth, and then the sapphire necklace on my 16th birthday, his kindness has filled exactly 1/3 of my life. Many girls liked him, but I was the only one by his side. He was like an older brother to me, and also someone I had quietly cherished in my heart since I don't know when until the school's freshman sports day. I suddenly fainted and fell to the ground. It was Vera's shoe who took me to the infirmary. From then on, there was a verse shoe between Chin and me. They shared the same hobbies. Both excelled in character and academics and always had endless things to talk about when they were together. I gradually became their little tag along. In her previous life, the incident of Veru being violated by her stepfather was spread throughout the entire school before she jumped off the building. Her hair was disheveled, and she glared at me fiercely. Nova Jiang, remember this. You are the one who killed me. Then she resolutely jumped down without giving anyone a chance to stop her. He didn't even give me a chance to explain. Chin went crazy when he saw the note she left. He gripped my shoulders tightly, his bloodshot eyes burning with a hatred that terrified me. Nova Jiang, why? Why would you do this? You are the only one who knows about this. My throat tightened again and again, and only by enduring the sharp pain in my shoulder could I barely manage to utter a few words. It wasn't me. But no one believed me. Vera's dying words spoken in front of everyone had already pinned the label of murderer on me. Any defense seemed pale and powerless in the face of the victim's direct accusation. Thus, I experienced unprecedented bullying and isolation. Everyone regarded me as a murderer, and every classmate at school looked at me with a sharp knife hidden in their eyes, especially Cade Chin. 4 years later, the Chin family proposed a marriage alliance with my family, and he agreed. It was as if he had forgotten all about Virashu and had returned to being incredibly good to me. I thought that Keen had finally decided to trust me because he ruffled my hair just like he always had since we were kids, his eyes gentle and kind. Nova, let's get married. In my memory, Cade Chin had always been this gentle and doting, and I thought the old him had returned until the Shu family's secrets fell into Cade Chin's hands. My family's business was ruthlessly suppressed by him. My parents were driven out of Jiang City, and I was imprisoned at home. Hatred and emotional abuse fill every moment of my existence. Chin no longer pretends. His gaze towards me is cold and distant. Nova, you should taste every bit of the suffering virus you endured. Nova, why don't you just die? If you are dead, I might be able to forgive you. As Chin wished 7 years later, Nova Jiang also jumped from a building in despair. Just like Virashu, I stood dazed on the street, the school's class bell still echoing in my ears, the pain of a shattered skull, the agony of a soul being torn away, and Keen's cold, heartless whisper before death finally began to fade from my mind. Nova, if you ever meet me and Vera again in your next life, remember to stay away from us. I let out a long, deep breath. In this lifetime, I will definitely stay far away from Kin and Virashu. Then I turned around and quickly ran toward home. To Nova, shouldn't you be in class at this time? As soon as I entered, my mother was sitting in the backyard, leisurely sipping coffee. Seeing me suddenly rush in, she was a bit surprised. With tears in my eyes, I threw myself into her arms and held her tightly. In my previous life, their lifelong efforts were destroyed overnight, and they were forced to leave Jiang City by Cade Chin, whom they had watched grow up before they died. I didn't even get to see them one last time. You're already so grown up and still clinging to your mom. What will you do when you get married above me? My mother's gentle complaints softly drifted down. Yet, at the mention of marriage, I couldn't help but shiver involuntarily. I immediately held her even tighter. I'm not getting married. I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay at home, take care of you and Dad, look after our family's company, and just be a carefree rich kid. Mom pretended to be helpless, but her smile grew even deeper. In that case, I guess we'll just have to let you, this little freeloader, eat at our house for the rest of your life. After sorting out my feelings all night, the next day I started going to school, as usual. The driver dropped me off at the school gate. As I got off the car, I caught a glimpse of Cade Chin and Virashu standing at the intersection not far away, chatting and laughing. That was our usual meeting spot. And they were waiting for me, afraid of being noticed by them. I quickly lowered my head, hugged my backpack tightly, and rushed into the school on the school path. The three of us walked together. My eyes were on Chin, but Chin's eyes were on Virashu. This unrequited love should have ended long ago. Yet, in my youthful ignorance, I secretly rejoiced at the chance to catch another glimpse of Cade Chin on this little path. After school, I dawdled my way out, only to find Keen and Veru waiting at the school gate. With no way to avoid them, I had no choice but to brace myself and walk out. Virus didn't ask me about why I ran away when I saw them yesterday and still intimately linked arms with me as usual. Nova, we waited for you at the intersection for a long time today. Why didn't you come? I held back again and again, but in the end couldn't resist and subtly withdrew my hand from hers. Ver's expression stiffened for a moment, but quickly returned to normal. Today is my birthday. Nova, aren't you going to keep me company? My heart suddenly trembled. In my previous life, it was on Verish's birthday night when she got drunk, looked at me with re-ened eyes, and we confided in each other. She unintentionally told me about being assaulted by her stepfather when she was young. This time, how could I dare to listen to her troubles again? I didn't dare look at Keen beside her, only lowering my head and speaking evasively. I have something going on at home. I won't be going. Happy birthday to you. After saying this, I ignored Vera's instantly re-ened eyes, turned around, and quickly walked away. Suddenly, hurried footsteps sounded behind me. Nova Jiang, it's Keen. My heart skipped a beat, and I walked even faster with my head down. Chin caught up with me in just a few steps, blocking my way entirely. His shadow instantly loomed over my head. Why are you running? Finally, for the first time, I lifted my head and looked at Keen, who had just turned 18. He was wearing the familiar school uniform, his facial features sharp and defined, but the deep indifference in his eyes, which didn't match his age, was exactly the same as the Chin from my previous life. Suddenly, I realized that the 18-year-old Chin would never look at me with such an expression. I suddenly panicked and instinctively took a few steps back, almost losing my balance. But Cade Chin in front of me stepped on my shadow as he approached step by step. Nova Jiang, you seem to be afraid of me. 3. The next second, Cade Chin's expression suddenly softened. And as usual, he reached out and ruffled my hair. Nova, what's wrong? Why are you avoiding Vera and me as soon as you see us? It's Ver's birthday today. She'll be really upset if you don't come. Let's go celebrate with her together.
Okay.
Chin was clearly smiling, but I could sense a hint of probing in his tone, and it made sense. Since yesterday, I had been acting out of character, avoiding them whenever possible, and not showing the same eagerness toward Chin as I had in my previous life. If Chin were not the 18-year-old Chin, he would definitely doubt whether I am really the 17-year-old Nova. After 3 years of marriage, my feelings for Cade Chin had long vanished along with the mental torment. Now I both hate and fear Katakin. I forced a smile. But Cade Chin had already taken the lead, saying to the driver waiting for me by the roadside, "Uncle Chin, it's a classmate's birthday today. I'll take Nova to play for a while and then bring her home." Uncle Chun, aware of the relationship between the Jiang and Qin families, smiled and nodded before driving away. I had no choice but to silently follow behind the two of them. In the past, when the three of us were together, I often watched Keen and Vera Shu chat and laugh with great, feeling a pang of bitterness in my heart. But now, I just look at them calmly, completely unmoved. I was even thinking about what excuse to use to leave halfway through. The night before I jumped off the building was the anniversary of Virish's death. Katachin, who was always out having fun, surprisingly came home and gently smiled while breaking my heart. "Nova, do you remember when you were stopped in the back alley during your senior year of high school? I happened to be back at the school that day. I stood at the entrance of the alley and watched you for a long time." The floor-to-ceiling window reflected my instantly pale face. That day, I will never forget. I was forced into the back alley of the school by several students. They called me a murderer, lined up to slap me across the face, tore my books to shreds, and scattered the pieces all over the alley. In the end, they made me kneel and say 100 times, "Senior Virashu, I was wrong." I numbly followed their demands because only then would the bullying come to an end. On graduation day, I thought everything had finally come to an end. I tried my best to forget those unbearable memories and sealed away everything related to Virashu. I thought I could start over. But 7 years later, Cade Chin told me that on that humiliating day, he was there. He had been there all along. That Cade Chin who held my hand since childhood and grew up with me like an older brother, stood somewhere, watching indifferently as I was bullied, beaten, and forced to kneel down and apologize. Cade Chin leaned close to my ear and continued speaking on his own. "By the way, Nova, your mother is sick now but has no money for treatment. And your father, at his age, has to work at a construction site. He injured his back and struggles every day. All of this is your fault. They could have lived a life of comfort forever. But now they have to atone for your mistakes." I saw my own unfocused pupils gradually grow lifeless with Cade Chin's words. So as long as I, this sinner, remained alive in this world, as long as Chin was still in my life, nothing could truly end. I could only atone for my sins with death, using death to break free. 4. On the way, Cade Chin called the manager of his private club and reserved a VIP room that was not open to the public. Listening to his calm and composed tone, I suddenly thought of Cade Chin after we got married. In my memory, this version of Cade Chin only appeared after he inherited the family business. Did he also get reborn? At this thought, I suddenly felt a bit nervous. No matter what, I can't let Cade Chin notice my unusual behavior. If Cade Chin has indeed been reborn as well, and if the events of the previous life repeat, I will still be seen as the sole culprit who harmed Viru in his eyes. After all, only I know Virish's secret. In the private room, Vera Shu shyly picked a love song and invited Cade Chin to sing it with her. The classmates all started making a commotion in their eyes. The noble and polite Cade Chin and the beautiful, resilient Vera Shu were nothing more than friends who hadn't yet become lovers, destined to be together sooner or later. I watched all of this calmly, feeling that the entire birthday celebration was truly dull and tedious. The private room suddenly opened, and a woman dressed like a wealthy lady appeared at the door. "Cade, it's Cade Chin's mother." She was dressed in a custom-made suit, exuding a powerful presence, and the lively atmosphere in the private room came to an abrupt halt as soon as she appeared. When her gaze fell on Virashu, who was sitting very close to Keen, she frowned almost imperceptibly. But when she looked at me sitting in the corner, her face instantly broke into a smile. "Nova, I was just wondering why my Cade went through so much trouble to reserve this private room at the club today. So, it turns out you wanted to come and have some fun." I had no choice but to stand up awkwardly. "Auntie, actually it's fine." Cade's mother said to me with a smile, her eyes full of affection. I was originally supposed to entertain clients here today, but I never expected that Cade would take over my private room. I thought it was for some shady people. As long as Nova wants to come, no matter how good the private room is in this club, it will be reserved for you. As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere in the private room instantly became awkward. Cade Chin's face showed displeasure, while Vera Shu only maintained her embarrassment for a few seconds before regaining her smile. I wanted to say something more, but I was directly interrupted by Chin's mother. By the way, Nova, remember to come over with your parents this weekend. Annie has found a new chef who is particularly skilled at making the dishes you like. I felt a lump in my throat, but couldn't think of any words to refuse, so I just said dryly, "Thank you, Auntie." Cade Chin's mother left satisfied, but I began to feel restless and uneasy. Fortunately, no one dwelled too much on this little episode, and before long, everyone was making noise and having fun again. Veru, however, was clearly in lower spirits. After drinking a few glasses of wine, she came over to me, affectionately linked arms with me, and started complaining. Nova Cade Chin gave me a custom-made necklace today. It's too expensive, and I didn't want to accept it, but he insisted it was just an ordinary gift. I really don't know what to do with him. Was he always this ordinary when it came to your birthdays in the past? I paused for a moment, and this time my brain, which had grown 7 years wiser, finally caught the underlying meaning in Vera's words. She was testing the waters, trying to see the difference in how Cade Chin treated her versus me. I laughed and said, "No, is that so?" Verish's eyes lit up with a hint of joy, but also carried a trace of suspicion. "Nova, you seem a bit unhappy today. Is it because Chin only gave me a necklace?" I froze for a moment, suddenly realizing that perhaps the feelings I thought I had hidden so well in my previous life had long been noticed by Virashu. "No," I quickly grabbed Verish's hand and said sincerely, "Senior Virashu, I'm really happy for you that Chin treats you so well. I hope you both will always be well." Amid the noise, Chin suddenly glanced in this direction. Vera was clearly prepared to continue sharing her feelings with me, but I just wanted to get away from where she and Chin were as quickly as possible. So, I pretended to have severe stomach pain and rushed out of the club like I was escaping. Once I was away from where Chin was, I felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted, and my steps instantly became much lighter. Standing by the roadside preparing to hail a taxi, Chin suddenly appeared from behind without anyone noticing. "Nova, didn't you just say you weren't feeling well?" I shuddered all over, immediately flustered and stammering. I felt a bit better after coming out. Cade Chin's towering figure was extremely imposing, his gaze gloomy and probing. "But Nova, I remember it was only after Virash's death that you started calling her Senior Virashu." My chest suddenly tightened. I stared blankly at Chin before me. Calm, composed, indifferent, and distant. He wasn't the 18-year-old Chin at all. He was clearly the caged Chin who had tormented me for 3 whole years. My eyes couldn't help but turn red as I stared at him wearily, slowly backing away. Cade Chin, however, smiled and stepped closer, one step at a time. "Nova, shouldn't you tell me why you've become so afraid of me?" "Stop. Don't come any closer." I suddenly trembled all over out of fear and anger. It was the resentment and injustice buried deep in the heart of Nova from the previous life. Too weak to be spoken aloud. "Because I hate you. I don't want to see you at all. I have already done as you wished, staying as far away from you as possible."
Why?
"Why are you still dragging me here? Cian, what do I have to do for you to let me go?" Chin paused, slowly revealing an expression of understanding, just as I thought. "Nova, I know you too well. You ask me how I can let you go.
But what about you?
In this lifetime, are you planning to let Vera go?"
It wasn't me.
I suddenly broke down, shouting at Cade.
It wasn't me.
"Why are you so sure that I caused Vera's death? And why do you think I wouldn't let her go in this lifetime? Why would I even want to harm her?" Cade Chin's expression instantly turned cold, a faint sneer curling at the corner of his lips. "Why? You once wrote in your diary, if there were no Virashu in this world, would Chin still treat you as well as before?" only to you alone.
5.
My figure suddenly froze under the night sky diary. How could Chin know what I wrote in my diary? I clearly burned this diary shortly after writing it. It turns out Chin already knew I liked him, which is why he was so convinced I had harmed Virashu. So all those feelings of longing, bitterness, and jealousy that I secretly poured onto paper late at night became my motives. I couldn't help but smile bitterly. Yes, I've liked you since I was a child. I did write those words in my diary. Back then, I was just upset that my brother, who had always only had eyes for me, was gradually looking at me less and less. If my liking for you is considered my motive for harming Senior Virashu, then I can tell you that in this lifetime, such a motive simply doesn't exist because the current me doesn't have even a shred of affection for you. I finally lifted my head and stared at Cade Chin word by word. Because now I fear you, hate you, and only want to stay away from you. Hate me. Chin's expression suddenly turned somber, dim, and unclear under the night sky. Nova, what right do you have to hate me? My mother liked you and treated you as my future wife since we were children, even though I resented her control. I still thought about taking good care of you for a lifetime. But why did you have to destroy her? Why, of all things, did you have to commit this kind of mistake between us? One that neither you nor I can ever atone for in this lifetime. This is the first face-to-face conversation I've had with Chin about Veru since her death. I quietly looked at him, feeling nothing but strangeness in both past and present lives. He never believed in me. Actions speak louder than words. Since you've been given a chance to start over, I hope you won't repeat the same mistakes. Cade Chin's face returned to calm once again. Veru has always lived a much harder life than us. I don't want her to get hurt again because of me. In this lifetime, I will stay by her side and protect her well. If anyone hurts her again, I will never let them off, including you. Don't worry, I said calmly. If possible, I never want to have any connection with either of you in this lifetime. Chin paused for a moment. Better that way. Watching Chin's retreating figure, it felt as if something had been completely severed and my body suddenly felt lighter. Even if Cade Chin knows I've been reborn, Virashu doesn't know I have her secret. If the tragedy repeats itself, Vera won't be able to accuse me face to face of harming her again in the days to come. I can peacefully accompany my parents and live a healthy life. As for the fate of others, what does it have to do with me? Cade Chin Viru and I suddenly became strangers. Slowly, I made my own friends and life began to feel calm and fulfilling. Nova, I've saved you a seat. My milk tea with 70% sugar. Hurry. On the weekend, my friend and I agreed to study together at school. The driver dropped me off at the school gate, and I crossed the alley to buy milk tea on the other side. At the alley entrance, a man and a woman were tugging at each other. Just as I tried to avoid them, the man's angry voice pierced my ears unavoidably. Viru, so, what if I slept with you? Did your mom even say anything without me? Would you and your mom have a place to live? Would you be able to go to school? You haven't even made it big yet, and you're already unwilling to come home. I suddenly froze in place. And the moment my gaze met Vera's panicked, darting eyes, the blood in my body ran cold. At the same time, Vera's face turned as pale as paper. The lingering powerlessness and gloom from my past life suddenly washed over me in waves. All paths of fate had already been predetermined. I still ended up becoming the only one who knows the secret. 6. In the middle of the night, I was startled awake in my dream by my past self jumping from a building. Even though I was just an observer in the dream, I was still shocked by the desperate and hollow eyes of my past self, Nova Jong. Since being reborn, I have only focused desperately on avoiding becoming the Nova Jong of my previous life. But I never thought about how to seek justice for her. She is me, but I don't want to become her. But if I continue to avoid it, does that mean I agree with the accusations they placed on Nova Jong in my past life? I betrayed myself. The moonlight was like water, and I stared blankly out the window as if I had returned to those 3 years when Cade Chin had confined me to the villa, forbidding anyone from contacting me. If the identity of the only one who knows is unavoidable, then is the spread of the secret from my previous life also unavoidable? Is the tragedy of Veru's breakdown and suicide also unavoidable? And as for the accusation of being a murderer that hangs over me, is that also unavoidable? I sat on the bed, my head splitting with pain. Who on earth would spread Virish's secret? If I don't find this person, my fate will be pushed back to my previous life. Just thinking about the scenes of being isolated and bullied at school, and those 3 years of marriage with Cade Chen, I feel like I can't catch my breath in my chest. Those were the darkest years of my life. I was afraid of marriage, afraid of Cade Chen, afraid of everyone around me. I became someone who only wanted to curl up in my own world, letting my whole body grow a thick cocoon to wrap everything up. But Chen wouldn't allow it. He tore open the cocoon again and again, using every means to retaliate against me until I broke down, despaired, and died. I must seek justice for Nova Jiang from my past life, and I must also do everything in my power to save myself. I quietly hired a private detective to start following Vera, trying to find a breakthrough. Vera was a boarding student, and it was difficult for her to return to that so-called home on weekends. Apart from going shopping with her roommates or visiting the library, she spent the rest of her time with Chin. Without me in the picture, all of Chin's attention naturally went to Vera Shu. From the day Chin drew a clear line with me, she also tacitly began treating me like a stranger, as if we had never been close. I couldn't help but recall the sentence I once wrote in my diary. Was there a time when Viru and I thought alike? Suddenly, I remembered a physical education class one afternoon in my previous life when the three of us made plans to eat at the newly opened spicy hot pot place by the school gate. After class, I was in the line when I saw Vero arrive at the playground early, accurately picked out my backpack from a pile of bags, held it up, and waved at me. That diary happened to be in the backpack. Was it her buzz? A few more photos came through on the phone one after another. Vero came out of the school alone and got into a black Rolls-Royce. It looked somewhat familiar. Probably the Chin family's car. Most likely Cade Chin was planning to take her somewhere to relax. I had been following this for a while now, but there was still no clue about the real culprit. Feeling a bit discouraged, I put down my phone. Knock knock. Sweetie, I've made you some bird's nest porridge. Would you like some? My mother's gentle voice came from outside the door. Although I wasn't in the mood to eat, I suddenly remembered what happened in my previous life. I stood there dazed, opened the door, looked at the steaming hot porridge, and suddenly grabbed it, stuffing it frantically into my mouth.
Slow down.
It's hot. No one's fighting you for it. After finishing the porridge, I snuggled up to my mother contentedly and spent the whole afternoon watching TV dramas on the sofa. This one is good. Yo, is he as good looking as Cade? Even better looking than him.
Huh.
This is the first time I've heard you say someone is better looking than Cade. In your eyes, hasn't Cade Chin always been the best? Well, people grow up. Okay, I don't think he's the best anymore. No wonder you've been refusing to attend gatherings with the Chin family lately. It turns out you're already a thing of the past. Cade's mother keeps mentioning you, saying there have been some sketchy girls pestering her. Cade, recently, there have always been many girls who like him. Aren't you one of them? Not anymore. Tisk, you've really grown up. Starting to appreciate the benefits of having a whole forest to yourself. When I returned to the room, several photos had already been sent to my phone showing Vero being driven back to school in that car. I scrolled through them disinterestedly, but suddenly noticed a figure in a black jacket in the corner of one photo. My heart suddenly raced. I felt like I had overlooked something. I trembled as I went back and flipped through all the photos I had taken during this period. Over 300 photos. Nearly half of them actually had this figure appearing.
7.
This sudden appearance of the person excited me. I look at the boy in the photo wearing a mask, but his eyes carry an inescapable gloom. He followed very carefully, always keeping a distance or blending into the crowd. If I hadn't hired a private investigator, I would never have noticed his presence. It's unclear how long this frequent stalking has been going on, but it's possible he has discovered Virishu's secret. Could it be that his unrequited love turned into resentment, leading him to want to destroy Virishu? No matter what, he is currently the most suspicious person after much thought. I chose a photo with relatively obvious tracking and sent it to Keen. This person is very likely the culprit who exposed Virish's secret in the previous life. There was no response from the phone for a long time. Could it be that Keen thinks I'm trying to use some trick to clear my own guilt? As the time when Virish's secret was exposed in the previous life drew closer, I thought about it and decided to find this man myself in order to reasonably stay on campus over the weekend. I specifically joined a club. According to Vira's habits, this week should be her time to go to the library. I put on a hat, quietly slipped away from the club activity, and waited on the path Virashu was bound to take. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Virashu and her roommate indeed walked out of the school gate on time. I followed from a distance, occasionally observing the surroundings, but did not see the figure of that boy while waiting for the traffic light. Just as the green light was about to go out, Veru and her roommate had already crossed the zebra crossing. I hurried to catch up and accidentally bumped into someone nearby. A pair of gloomy eyes suddenly came into view. I froze, my pupils instantly dilating. It's him. The man who collided with me seemed to realize something from my expression. He suddenly reached out, shoved me hard, and turned to run. I was pushed to the ground, watching the figure darting into the crowd. Ignoring the pain all over my body, I scrambled to my feet and immediately gave chase. The man was extremely fast, and I chased after him with all my might. I couldn't let him get away. He was very likely the one who framed me in my previous life. Suddenly, he turned into an alley up ahead. Without thinking much, I followed and ran in. It wasn't until I reached a dead end that I realized something was wrong and abruptly stopped behind me. That person had already blocked my way back. I turned around and confronted him as he gasped for breath.
Who are you?
Why are you following Virashu? Do you intend to harm her? You've been following her for so long. Do you know some secret about her? The murderer was right in front of me. I could no longer contain the fury inside me. And fear was the last thing on my mind. All I wanted was to uncover the truth. If you don't speak up, I'll call the police right now. I took out my phone and dialed 110. The man's eyes flashed with panic, and he immediately lunged to snatch it. After I barely managed to dodge, he became furious out of humiliation and threw a heavy punch at my back. I grunted in pain. Seeing his next punch about to land, I was so frightened that I quickly covered my head.
Bang!
A sharp cry of pain rang in my ears, followed by the violent sound of bodies colliding. I looked up and saw Chin suddenly appear. He quickly subdued that person and knocked them to the ground, then suppressed his anger and growled at me. Nova Jiang, are you an idiot? Don't you know what danger means? 8. Police station. Virus was notified to come and identify the stalker. The man was indeed her former admirer who had been relentlessly harassing her and even threatened to completely ruin her. It was definitely him. I finally felt a sense of relief. Anyway, the biggest crisis has been averted. As long as we get through the last 3 months and Chin and Virashu leave after the college entrance exams, everything will be over. Thinking of this, my steps out of the police station became lighter. Novachin called out to me from behind. His tone as cold and steady as ever. You should go to the hospital and get checked. I instinctively took a few steps back to create distance between us and nodded stiffly. I understand. After hesitating for a long time, Chin finally asked, why did you have someone investigate Ver's whereabouts? I frowned deeply. Senior Veru can convict me with just one sentence. So, am I not allowed to clear my name? That's not what I meant. Chin, you used every means to make me suffer and wished for my death. Did you ever even for a moment consider that the real culprit might not be Nova Jiang, whom you've watched grow up since childhood? Chin's face suddenly turned pale. Vera might have misunderstood the matter back then. She's already suffered enough. Why blame her further? I laughed coldly. She may be pitiful, but she's not innocent. Wasn't it her who told you about my diary? Chin was taken aback for a moment and didn't answer, which could be considered an admission, I said with a faint mockery. Now no one will threaten her anymore. You can rest assured, Nova. Chin suddenly spoke. Can I still be your brother? I turned around and took one last look at him. No, the person you are now is no different from those who once bullied me. On my way home, Veru suddenly appeared and stopped me. She panicked and was furious. Nova Jiang, what do you mean? Why are you following me? What are your intentions? I know you've always liked Cade Chin. Do you think that by knowing my secret, you can use it to threaten me? The usually gentle Virashu seemed like a completely different person. Firing off a barrage of questions, I suddenly realized that perhaps her gentleness, understanding, and excellence in both character and academics were just a facade. How could such a repressive family environment and experiences possibly nurture a normal person? For no reason, the image of me fainting on the playground and her being the first to appear flashed through my mind. Staring at her somewhat distorted face, I voiced my suspicion. Senior Vera Shu, when you were being nice to me before, was it to get close to Cade Chin? Vera suddenly paused, a flash of panic crossing her face. Knowing the answer, I smiled self-deprecatingly and said, I won't compete with you for Chin. Then I turned and walked away. But after just a few steps, I suddenly paused.
Huh.
Did she just say that I also want to use her secret to threaten her? I tried hard to suppress the doubts in my heart. Maybe it was just a coincidence.
9.
On Monday, as soon as I stepped into the classroom, my desk mate mysteriously leaned in close. Nova Jiang, have you heard? Senior Vera Shu from the 12th grade was by her stepfather. My chest tightened and I grabbed him, demanding sharply, how do you know about this? My desk mate was startled by me. Everyone is talking about it. It's spreading like wildfire. Some even dared to go to Vera's classroom and ask her. Before the words had even finished, I had already rushed out of the classroom. On the way, I bumped into Chin. Nova Jiang, it was you, wasn't it? Chin grabbed my wrist furiously, nearly losing all control. Do you still resent me? Resent those experiences? Resent those 3 years? I abruptly shook off Chin's hand. Get out. I had intended to go to Vera Shu's classroom, but then remembered the rooftop from which she had jumped back then. So I immediately turned and hurried toward the rooftop instead. As expected, Vera Shu stood precariously on the edge of the rooftop. Hearing the noise, she suddenly turned her head, her eyes filled with despair and devastation. Nova Jiang, are you happy to see me like this? I forced myself to calm down. At this moment, I was the first person to arrive at the scene. Vera wouldn't be foolish enough to start accusing me right now. Are you waiting for everyone to arrive so you can tell them that I'm the one who caused your death, and then leave that note to let Chin know that I was the one who spread your secret? Virashu's face suddenly turned pale. I continued. Senior Virashu, what exactly did I do wrong to bear such a blame for you? Then what did I do wrong to be treated like this? The distraught Virashu screamed. My eyes turned red, and my whole body trembled. You're absolutely wrong. You're wrong because you knew Chin's mother looked down on you. Yet you still saw him as your life's salvation and went to great lengths to get close to him. You're wrong because you knew I wasn't the one who spread your secret. Yet you wanted to ruin my life and cage Chin's to get back at his mother. You're wrong for letting the real culprit go free while making us who did nothing
Pay the price.
Virus Senior. If you knew that in the end Cage went mad, I was driven to death. While Cage Chin's mother remained unharmed and your stepfather who hurt you is still fine, would you be content? Vera was stunned, then fell silent for a long while before finally, speaking slowly. That's right. I deliberately got close to all of you. Even when you suddenly fainted during the sports meet, it was because I drugged your water. I had my eyes on Keen. His family is well off, and he could take me away from that home I detest with him. I wouldn't have to worry about my future studies and life. And I wouldn't have to return to that disgusting place. If I approach him rashly, he'll only think I have ulterior motives. I can only start with you. I packaged myself as a poor yet resilient little flower, deliberately making him feel sorry for me, slowly shifting his heart from you to me. After all, you have so much more than I do, don't you?
Huh.
But his mother told me that Cade Chin's future wife must come from a respectable family and be obedient and sensible. Someone like me could never set foot in their home. She investigated my background thoroughly and demanded that I leave Cade Chin on my own. I thought I would make it to the end, but I never expected that she truly intended to drive me to my death. All the way as I ran, the scattered details since my rebirth kept replaying in my mind. I had overlooked a very important clue inside that black Rolls-Royce. It wasn't Chin. Only Chin's mother would use this car. Chin's mother and Virashu had met long ago. With Chin's mother's methods, there is nothing she cannot find out. She has always been extremely controlling of Keen from childhood to adulthood. Apart from me, whose family background is comparable to the Chin family.
No one could get close to Chin.
If she were to take action against Virashu, everything would make sense. The person Viru truly wants to take revenge on is Chin's mother. She wants Chin to feel guilty for her death for the rest of his life. She wants me, the future wife with a clean family background chosen by Chin's mother, to bear the stigma of murderer and be condemned by the world forever. I stared straight at Virashu. What you should do now is go to the police. Whether it's Chin's mother or your stepfather, your death would be meaningless if it doesn't bring those who harmed you to justice. After all, I really did see you as a sister. Chin was genuinely good to you. Virus's body suddenly trembled. Then slowly, she walked down from the rooftop. Cade Chin, who had arrived long ago, stood silently by the rooftop door, his body trembling slightly, not saying a word. He had heard everything. Nova, Cade Chin, and Virashu, who were far apart, suddenly spoke at the same time. I'm sorry. I turned and walked toward the small door, looking at them indifferently. The Nova Jiang Yu let down has long been dead in her previous life. Nova Jiang had completely vanished the moment she jumped from the building. I am no longer her, and I certainly won't forgive anyone on behalf of the one who has already disappeared. As I passed by Cade Chin, I let out a low chuckle tinged with faint mockery. How pathetic. Cade Chin, it turns out that Veru doesn't love herself, nor does she love you. The only one who loved you, Nova Jiang, was also driven to death by you. Later, Cade Chin's mother and Virash's stepfather were arrested. Virash's stepfather received the punishment he deserved, and Kin's mother was also sentenced for coercion and violation of personal privacy. Veru offended the Chin family, and her mother cut ties with her. She left Jiang City from then on and disappeared from my life as well. Only Chin remained like an empty shell atoning for his sins, following me like a shadow. 10. When Nova Jiang got married, Chin was already seriously ill. In recent years, he often thought of the young Nova Jiang, charming and adorable, always holding his hand, asking for candy, wanting him to accompany her wherever she went. He had also been confused about Nova Jiang's place in his heart. Was she just a younger sister or a future wife? Having lived through 2 lifetimes, he himself could no longer see clearly. He now resembled an empty shell, devoured and drained, surviving only on news of Nova Jiang. Nova is going abroad to study. Nova rejected the man her family arranged for her to meet. Nova said she detests marriage. In this lifetime, Nova Jiang can fly to Africa alone, travel by herself, and upon returning to the country, she even took charge of the Jiang family business. Looking at the confident and spirited Nova Jiang in the photo, he finally understood that the Nova Jiang who loved him was truly gone. She had died within their 3-year marriage. The Nova Jiang whom he deliberately isolated from the world and occasionally provoked with accusations of being a murderer. The Nova Jiang who would only pitifully and helplessly call him Brother Keen had truly left this world. I remember several times when she had depressive episodes. She picked up a small knife and almost hurt him after coming to her senses. She kept apologizing to him. Cautious and pitiful, it's hard to imagine that she would kill Virashu. But Virashu clearly said it was her. She loved Chin and didn't want to share her Keen brother with anyone. The contents of her diary were read aloud to him by Virashu. He only then realized that the seemingly obedient Nova Jiang in his eyes had so many bitter and unspeakable little thoughts. She would feel jealous and sad too, but she was just better at pretending. It wasn't until the truth came out that he realized how terribly wrong he had been. Nova Jiang was right. The Nova Jiang who loved him had already died in the previous life, and his sins were beyond redemption. Chin silently watched over and Nova Jiang, even halting the competitive business between the Chin family and the Jiang family. Perhaps it was retribution, as he was tormented every night by memories of his past and present lives. In her past life, Nova Jiang had timidly called him Brother Chin, it's so dark at home. It feels like something has entered my body. I'm in so much pain and discomfort, but I can't find what it is. It was only much later that he learned Nova Jiang's depression had become very severe. Now, he truly felt it. That thing which had entered his body and made him suffer unbearably too. When the man who made Nova Jiang's smile bright again appeared, he knew it was time for him to leave. The Qin family had long fallen into decline. With no one left to sustain it, he came to the rooftop alone, where Nova Jiang from his previous life had resolutely jumped off. Nova Jiang never asked why he had also been reborn. Actually, on the night Nova Jiang jumped, he held her lifeless body and felt as if his heart had been torn out. Love and hate, everything was gone. He simply and decisively set a fire that burned everything, including himself. The wind rustled as someone fell from the tall building. Nova, live well.